Even as Black Flag seeks to shatter all the preconceived notions about the Assassin's Creed series, it still comes on the scene with the usual 2-story DLC campaigns. This one being the obvious big budget one that got all the effort put in. Freedom Cry starts us off by switching focus off of Edward Kenway's Odyssey and begins to tell one of the stories of the life of Adewale, Edward's ex-right-hand crewmate who turned assassin after they offered him something that all the gold on the Isles couldn't even come close to: integrity. Adewale joins the Assassins to contribute to something greater than himself and the side of anti-slavery in the 18th century. And while I will keep this short because honestly it's a bit political and annoying, I did want to talk about the difference that makes Adewale's fight against slavery more meaningful than Avelin's fight in liberation. From their backstories, Adewale is the character that seems to have been there, done that as a slave, and was able to fight his way out of the grips of it through sheer determination, while Aveline simply looks the part. She has a high-class upbringing which makes her noble efforts feel a bit hollow. Yeah, she could dress up as a slave to trick people and get a chance to feel the abuse, but at any time, Aveline can simply switch clothes, kill a couple guards, and then go back to her high-class life of afternoon balls and not dying of dysentery. This helps a lot in Freedom Cry, since it colors the DLC as an exciting The Last Samurai sort of thing, where Adewale marches into Port-au-Prince, sneaks through the shadows, and starts slashing through the chains and collars, and recruiting the liberated under the banner of freedom! The slave-turned-assassin returning to the cruel Port-au-Prince and freeing the slaves being beaten and tortured. It's one of the times in the franchise where the assassin is fighting against the long odds, instead of the other times where the assassin is given all the resources, allies, and moral support left and right to help them fight off a bunch of corrupt jackwads who wouldn't know moral complexity if it gave them a handshake and crossed their fingers? I don't know where I was going with this metaphor. According to Ubisoft, the de facto encyclopedia of video game publishers, Port-au-Prince was the most sadistic slave-owning island in the entire island region. Making the slaves suffer frequent beatings, the deadly weather, tight scrutiny, and a high number of death threats, both verbal and physical, was a commonality, as the sugar trade on Port-au-Prince was highly profitable, to the point that in order to farm it efficiently, Port-au-Prince outnumbered their white people 3-1 with so many slaves. To help in the cause to free the poorest of workers, Adewale finds information and refuge at the local brothel thanks to a little deal Adewale has going with the madam, and no, that's not what I'm talking about. Adewale got a hold of a parcel that the madam wants since it's addressed to her, and Adewale is not giving it up without a damn good reason. So the pair enter into an uneasy partnership where he'll kill whoever on her behalf, as long as it helps liberate slaves on his behalf. Since liberation is the main focus of Adewale's campaign on Port-au-Prince, the DLC comes jam-packed with additional side quests for liberating slaves from punishments, auctions, being chased, and being kept in cages. A bit later in the game, Adewale also gets the chance to liberate entire plantations all at once, as long as he kills every guard on post on the farm. All of these side quests are a good thing to have, since it'll give you something frequent to do while you're sneaking past guards to get to campaign missions, but also because it's actually required to beat the game. Twice in the game, Adewale needs to reach slave liberation quotas in order to unlock the next story mission, and then there's another prerequisite for a quest where Adewale needs to leave Port-au-Prince and liberate a far-off plantation. It's a good way to extend the playtime of your DLC, at least to literally gate off the main content behind arbitrary side quest checkpoints. As the player is getting more and more immersed into the depravity and despicableness of Port-au-Prince, Adewale is still looking for passage off the island and a couple errands for the madam to help each other out. Getting the ship was honestly rather easy with the right sort of distraction, but the problem with that is that there's no reason to do any of the side quests on the open ocean, since all the upgrades you could buy with that money are blocked off by liberation quotas, and there's nothing really unique or interesting to do in this DLC beyond Port-au-Prince. Not when there's a scoop to be found of the island's governor funding a scientific expedition to chart the world's oceans accurately, allowing the Templars almost inhuman domination of the entire seascape. The problem with this DLC is that the main plots of the DLC don't actually go anywhere or end up doing anything. The governor's science gets stopped by Adewale destroying the scientific vessel, and the package he was delivering to the madam doesn't get shown on screen, so all the DLC has got going for it is the last samurai journey of Adewale cutting his way through every asshole he can find on the island. The final leg of the mission was a nice send-off for the paying customer, as Adewale tracks down and brutally murders Port-au-Prince's governor for destroying an innocent slave ship after Adewale had crippled its escorts and ensured that they would be saved. The death of the governor was a satisfying assassination because of how much it was deserved, even though it was one of the most brutal in the entire franchise. That assassination is the last mission of the game, and so after delving into the true underbelly and the worst you can see of colonial-era slavery, getting to murder the guy who was enabling the entire system is definitely justified, especially when Adewale got to carry it out. And even though Adewale's hard work on Port-au-Prince is ultimately pointless, as the French can always send more slaves and more governors to keep the status quo going, his liberation journey was a great one and an interesting change from what the player has gotten used to in Black Flag, with the game giving the player new weapons and new side quests to accomplish only highlighted the more when the player finds they are required for story completion. Port-au-Prince is a grand location for this DLC, as it feels inherently depraved and dirty, making it quite the accomplishment as Adewale subtly begins cleaning it from the inside out. A nice idea would have been to see the liberated slaves coming to Adewale's aid throughout the DLC as their numbers grew, yet the story we got from the DLC itself was mighty fine already. For the amount of playtime I got out of it and the enjoyment from completing its campaign, $10 sounds like a fair price for a campaign chapter so distant from its main game. I'd suggest it to any customer who needs a good reason to get another hour or two out of the best Assassin's Creed game to date.